Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back looking at the planned economy and battle racing changes which are going to be coming to the game soon, and now it's time to have a look at the ground vehicles and also the fleet ones in this video. If you want to have a look at the aviation ones, we covered them in the last two videos, and I don't think any of them has changed, but if there is any changes in the future, I will make sure to keep you updated on them. So let's have a look. We're going to have a look at ground realistic in this video and also fleet arcade, since those are the two game modes that I mainly play out the two specific, sets of vehicles. So the first one is the SAV 2012-48. This is the new Swedish premium that was added to the game for the access to the Swedish ground CBT when it gets added to the game. And the SAV 2012-48 being set at 3.3, now at 3.7, doesn't really surprise me too much. It has a great burst potential. So a lot of vehicles in War Thunder, generally they're a one and done or a two and done vehicle, meaning that once they get their first shot off, they're either spotted and people know where they are, so it's quite hard to peek once again, so you have to reposition, that takes time, and then, your team can fall apart in certain areas, so you have to go over there, so you can maybe get 2 or 3 kills, and then because of your reload, you're not able to do anything else, really. The SAV, because of the fact that it has such a short reload and such, quite a large clip for that reload. The reload is 1.2 seconds now, and the clip size of it is sat at 6 pieces, so you can pretty much get 6 shots off in a matter of 8 seconds. So technically that can be 8 targets destroyed in a very, very quick, very, very quick, short amount of time. So overall, you can understand the killing power of the SAV. It still has real issues with it, though. The fact that it's open-topped, the fact that it doesn't have a turret on it, and this means that after the 5-minute mark, after maybe you've made that initial burst on the enemy, you're always going to die, or you're always going to have, a lot of issues with it. But seeing its BR go up, as I said, is not really a surprise because of its potential in the first few minutes of the game. I don't think this will affect its playstyle that much. It still has good penetration on its round, 95mm overall, 95, 76, and 32 at 60 degrees, and also it should still be one-shotting targets. Maybe this just means that every so often it fights more KVs nowadays, so it actually will have to aim. So I don't think it makes a massive difference to it, but still it is obviously a little nerf for it. Now we have a collection of wonderful changes. The Type 74G, the Leopard A1A1L44, and the AMX-30 Super are all going up to 9.0. And you may be wondering, why are these ones going up? Well, first of all, the XM1 went up before, and if we have a look at the combining factor of a lot of these vehicles, or all of these vehicles, when it comes to premiums, is they all have thermals. They all have thermals, they all have lol pen rounds, and they all have stabilizers, and they all have good speed. There's a reason why for a long time, when it comes to these 8.7 premiums, they were really sought after by a lot of players. A lot of people wanted to buy them. It's because they were easy mode. It was because of the fact that you had the combination of speed, stabilizer, and thermals. It was just a really good combination. And since thermals were added, there was a distinct difference between them and their tech tree counterparts. I always made, the argument with the L44. If you have a look at the A1A1, yes, the L44 is better than it, but it's not massively better than it. It isn't a huge difference. I still think, the L44 should have gone up, but, the difference there wasn't that massive. But then they added thermals to the L44, and then the difference became apparent. And I know for a lot of people, thermals isn't that big of a deal, or they don't think it changes gameplay that much. It does. If you saw the Macarva video that I made, a week or so ago, you can see how at long ranges or even at short ranges, if you have very powerful APFS DS rounds, all you have to do is just sit there, wait to see some white, and fire, and you will kill whatever you see. You saw a ton of L44s against me doing it, basically shooting into the Macarva's engine because they have no idea where to shoot the damn thing, because they're just looking for white once they see white and they shoot, which is, one of the big great things about the Macarva. But against other vehicles, you just shoot center mass and you just annihilate them. So to see these three go up, I think is incredibly positive. It still keeps them out of the high bracket, the 9.3 to 10.3, but this also alleviates a little bit of the stress on a lot of 7.7s which do not match up well against the 8.7 premiums. The 8.7s are still going to be there in the form of the Leopard A1A1, stuff such as the T55AM I still think is at 8.7, isn't it? Yeah, it is, because I don't think that gets access to thermals, no, just MVDs. And then, of course, you know, the Type 74 is still going to be at 8.7, so now you have a choice. You can either up BR yourself in the form of the premiums, get a little bit of bonus of the thermals, obviously get a bonus in the rewards, but you're going to be at a high BR, or you can play the standard tech tree equivalents, which are slightly lower in BR, but you have slightly worse, you know, stuff, such as you only have access to night vision instead of thermals. I think this is a great trade-off. I'm really happy that they've decided to do this, because it means that now there is concrete evidence that the premiums are better than the tech tree counterparts, and the BRs represent that. So, wonderful stuff, great move, very proud of you. The next one is the M42. The Duster for China and America and Japan, they're all going down to 6.0. So they started off at 6.7 and now they're, you know, going down to 6.0. I don't actually think this really changes anything for the majority of them. So if we just have a look here at what is actually around them. So I suppose it definitely helps the Duster for the Americans, because it means that now you can run it with stuff like the Bulldog if you want to. You can also run it with the 76 Jumbo. So yeah, there is a reason there that's good. And I suppose you could also run it with the T26E1 if you really wanted to. So yeah, I mean that just gives you more options of lineups that you can put AA into without using the M19, even though the M19 is very similar to it. Looking at the Chinese, it doesn't really give you that many more options, apart from you can run it in the 6.3 lineup. But do you really want to play the Chinese 6.3 lineup, the Type 63, the IS-2 mod, and the SU-100? That's a rough lineup if I've ever seen one, especially if you get up-tiered to 6. Well, not up-tiered, but if you play at 6.7 a lot with it. But I suppose it gives you that extra option, which is nice. And for Japan, it also gives you that extra option in the form of the STAs and then also the Bulldogs. So yeah, I mean overall that's good. It's good that this gets lowered in BR. I never really understood why the Duster was such a high BR compared to the M19. I feel like the AA in the game is very similar to aerialistic bombers, where they're just kind of all over the place. There isn't a lot of rhyme or reason around the decisions of where they are, but it is how it is. Also remember that the M42 as well is going down to rank 4. I'm not sure if this is for every M42, but it is definitely for the American M42, and the M163, the Vulcan, is going down to rank 5. So that means that they'll definitely be worse for researching across the board, which kind of sucks, but in the end it won't really matter too much, since AA is not really the thing, you know, you use too much to research, unless it's a top tier AA and your name is the Automatic. Talking about the Automatic, that's also going up in BR. So the Automatic is going from 9.7 to 10.0. I think this is once again a positive change. The Automatic is a machine that can do whatever the hell it wants, whenever the hell it wants, when it's fully spaded. And at least for me, it isn't fully spaded, and I've been using it just to annihilate helicopters. I've pretty much just been sitting in games and just hitting them with a HE VT shell, and it's been really, really fun. I've enjoyed my time in the Automatic a lot, and yes, without that APF SDS, which is a rank 4 modification, it can be a little bit annoying facing tanks, but then again, it's an AA, you know, it's that's something that every other AA in the game has to deal with. But once you get that APF SDS, well, you turn into a tank killer, and also you have thermals on top of it. So the Automatic, in my opinion, is still the best hybrid vehicle in the game when it comes to killing anything that it sees. Maybe in the future we'll have a slight... oh no, actually the ADATs might actually be better than it, thinking about it. So it's pretty close between those two, and when it comes to it going up in BR, I do agree with it. I just wish the APF SDS moved to rank 2, if we're going to just see it as a vehicle that's going to be a 10-3 constantly, because of the fact that most of the time if you just get rushed by tanks and, you know, there's not many helicopters around or planes around, there's not really a lot you can do. So yeah, that would be a nice little change that I'd like to see. It would also make the rank 2 modifications cheaper, because they are actually quite expensive, along with the rank 1 ones, which sit at around 20,000 RP, apart from, of course, parts and FPE. So yeah, that's it's definitely pricey. I personally really enjoy playing it though, and I think you can still easily run it with a really strong top tier lineup. Once again though, the Sedan Mistral, I don't know why you run the Sedan Mistral. The Sedan Mistral really has range issues when it comes to its missiles and when it comes to its gun. So now, are we going to see the Mistral go down in BR, or are we just going to accept that there wasn't really a use in it being added in the first place because the automatic exists? We'll see if something happens, but yeah, it is how it is. The next vehicle is the Panzer III-E. The Panzer III, of course, the little German boy, and this used to be at quite a high BR of 2.0, I believe, and now they're moving it down to 1.3. Oh no, I'm looking at the Panzer IV-E, sorry. So the Panzer III right now is at 1.7, they're moving it down to 1.3. This is actually a nice change for it, because it means that you can put it into a really strong 1.3 lineup. You know, the STKFC 221, you've got the Panzer II-F there, the Flak Panzer I, and also the Panzer 38TA. All of these vehicles are really fun. On top of it, you have the Panzer IV-C as well, so you can throw in that alongside. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really make too much of a difference, just makes the grind of rank 1 easier for Germany, but overall there's a lot of really nice and really fun vehicles to play in lower tier Germany, and now you've just got one along with a bunch of the other ones which are lower BR, so they'll be funner to use. Also, if you want to, you can bring along the Fahrzeug, so that would be that would be great. Oh, and also the STKFC 141. My god, what a stacked lineup that is. That sounds incredibly fun. The next one is the 7534 M42. This is another machine from the Italians, which is a tank destroyer, I believe. Yeah, it is the 3.0 one. They added smoke to all of these, and one of the problems with adding smoke to all of them is now that I have to go and spade them again, I now remember and realize why I disliked them so much in the first place. Engine power is the real problem with all of these Semaventes. They are incredibly slow, and also their rounds are just not good enough to be able to reliably pen anything. And also their reloads are a lot worse than a lot of meta tanks that you find. So any of these getting dropped in BR I think is a positive. The 7534 M42 getting dropped is good. Now it's the same BR as the 7532 M41, so it's just a direct upgrade over it. Well, I suppose it's a direct upgrade. It actually has very similar penetration when it comes to its heat shell, and I suppose it gets a slightly better APC-BC shell, but that's really about it. So yeah, it's not surprising to see another drop to one of the tank destroyers for the Italians. I remember when all of these were higher BR than they were that I'm looking at today, and I remember just saying when I did the reviews for the rank 1 and rank 2 and rank 3 of the Italians, just saying all of them need to go down in BR, because they're just not good vehicles. They're just incredibly slow. They have long reloads, and their guns just don't really do anything because the penetration is weak on them. They're not fun vehicles to play. Only play them if you have to, and yeah, it's just one of those really dodgy lines. But it's nice to see one of them going down, you know. At least that means that it'll be easier to spade it. The KVs, so a lot of the KVs, the KV2 1939, so that's the Tech True Soviet one, the KV2 1940, that's the special gift premium one, the KV275-4R, which is the German KV2, all of these are going down in BR. So they're all going to 4.0. So now that actually bolsters the German 4.0 mega lineup. If you don't know what the German 4.0 mega lineup is, it's the Panzerkampfwagen Churchill, the premium one. Then you have the T-34 747. Then on top of that, that. If you have the KV-1B, that is another one which you can throw in. And then, of course, now this KV-2. So it just makes this lineup a hell of a lot more fun with a bit of the meme machine, the KV-2754. And for the Soviets, the two of them going down, I suppose it doesn't really make too much of a difference. The KVs have fundamental problems with them just from a competitive point of view. The fact that they have insane reloads, the fact that they have, not a lot of gun depression, the fact that they don't really have anything else to do apart from try and donk a target, kind of like the barn, for the British. It doesn't really do too much apart from every so often just nuking somebody. But even the KV-2 over the last few years has been struggling to do that because of the changes that they made to HE. So seeing them go down in BR, I think is good. It's another positive change, just because if people want to play them and they want to have fun with them, they need to be at a slightly lower BR to make sure that they don't struggle in that 4-7 area, where a lot of stuff gets decent penetration, and there's nothing that the KV-2 can do against it. If you want to know how to deal with the KV-2, you just hit the flat part below the gun, and you'll kill the whole turret. And it's only 75mm, so even guns down to 2.0 can actually pen that. It doesn't really do too much to lineups, I don't think, when it comes to the 4.0 area. I don't think the Soviets have that much for 4.0. I suppose they have the ZIS-43 and the T-34 STZ. So yeah, if you don't have any of the premium 4.0s, you can definitely still make a nice lineup around the KV-2 if you want to play it. But I mean, as I said, it's got so many issues with it, just fundamentally. It's nice to see it dropped in BR, so the people who want to have fun with it or want to have a meme day with it can do it easier. The KV-1S is also getting dropped. This is kind of surprising to me. I think the KV-1S is actually a really, really good vehicle. But if you want to understand what the KV-1S is, it's a fast KV-1 with less armor on it. So the KV-1 ZIS-5 still sits itself at 4.3. The KV-1 L11 with the worst gun sits itself at 3.7. So the KV-1S going down, it's obviously not because of its gun, because obviously then the KV-1 ZIS-5 would go down. It must be because its armor is just not doing enough. And for me, that's, the whole point of the vehicle is speed, and maybe the speed is just not making up for the loss of armor. We also had the change to the DeMar formula a year ago, when a lot of the American 75s on stuff like the Shermans and the 76s got a hell of a lot more powerful, and that means that stuff like KVs have been running up against these stabilized 75s and stabilized 76s and just being mauled by them. So I feel like the KV-1S has unfortunately become one of those vehicles where it just, every time it sees a Sherman, it can't get its gun on target because it's going too fast, and then the Sherman just bips it because of its stabilizer. So I can definitely see that happening. I really still like the KV-1S. It's one of my favorite vehicles at this BR. It is a rank 2, so it's only useful for researching rank 3 and below, but it is kind of sad to see it go down in BR. It does, I mean, you can now run it with the KV-2s, I suppose, which have also gone down in BR to 4.0, so that's something to look forward to. The ARL 44 AC1 is going down to 3.7. Interesting. So the ARL 44 ACL1, the issue with it isn't really its BR. I think it does okay at its BR. It doesn't have a lot of armor, but then again, it's just how it's made. But it does have a really nice 75mm on it. The 75mm, 111 penetration at 4.0. You can pretty much go through whatever you feel like with the machine. And it's quite spacious, so it's kind of hard to one-shot. Generally, you get the turret knocked, and then that's really about it. I suppose you do have the ammo in the back of the turret. Maybe that's what's, causing the survivability to go down a bit. But the main thing is, I thought it was fine at its BR. The problem the ACL1 has is it doesn't have a lineup around it. The same issue that the ARL44 has, where it just, you can't build stuff added to BR around it. Instead, the ACL1, you have to run with the AMX13FL11, the M4A1, the M10 GMC, and all of these are pretty good at their BR, but they're also 0.7 lower than the ARL44, apart from the M10, which has issues with its turret because of its turret rotation. So yeah, it's kind of odd seeing it get dropped in BR, but I suppose this just makes that lineup that you have to add the 3.3s in more powerful. I would have just preferred to see some more vehicles added to France to bolster that 4.0 area, and I think the ACL1 would have been fine. So I kind of disagree with the dropping of that BR. I think right now it's fine where it is. It's got, you know, the gun is powerful enough, the speed is good enough. Yes, it's a large target, but if you angle well, you know, you can negate that. It's just kind of a surprise that that happens. The 75 32 M41, oh, that's also going down. Okay, so the one before the one that we talked about, the 75 34 M42, the 75 M32 M41, the folded one is also going down. So it is not just better than its counterparts at the BR. Now we have just a straight line. So it goes from 1.7 to 2.0 to 2.3 to 2.7 to 3.0. So finally, all of the Semaventes, at least all of the Semaventes now will have different BRs, and they will all make sense because they are supposed to be progressions on top of each other instead of them being at the same BR. So that is good, that is positive. It's another, what I said about the 75-34 M42 still applies to the 75-32 M41, still struggles in all the areas we talked about before. Now, the British, there's a lot of changes to 7.3. The Conqueror, the Vickers, and the Centurion are all going up in BR. They're all going up to 7.7. Now, this is interesting. My general feelings on 7.3 is the majority of the time I play at 7.7 anyway, so it's not too much of a difference, but there are some times where you actually get top BR as 7.3s, and that lineup of the British with the Vickers, the Cent, the Falcon, and also the Conqueror absolutely massacre, and they do really, really well. Stabilizers with the Conch, some armor as well, and with the speed of the Vickers, you have versatility to be able to do whatever you want on the map. But I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Chris Giltnane, Daniel Stanton, Jay Wilt, John Ryman, Martinez, Moxie, Super Cacti, Trigger Hippie, Eugens Terry, and also Elove Goat and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.